This video is sponsored by Squarespace. If you're an adult, there probably came a time in your life when you thought, how the fuck do I make friends as an adult? This is the definitive guide on how to make friends as an adult or as any person that's not in school anymore. Step 1. So the first step to making friends is kind of a precursor, and that's start seeing the same people regularly. Because as you probably instinctively know, you can't just really find friends straight out of the gate. You have to accumulate them slowly through repetition. So what I mean by this is that most friendships, but especially adult friendships, are built through repeated low stakes exposure with the same people. It's very rarely going to be like an instant connection or like a dazzling conversation and instantly you're like best friends. So the reason that this is so hard when you're an adult is because back when you were a child or when you were in school, it was way easier to make friends because you saw the same people through forced proximity, that proximity being school. So you saw the same people like 5 days a week, you hated the same teachers, you sat next to each other in classes. And if you see people all of the time, if you do all of that, you're gonna end up being friends with some of them. But now that you're an adult, you don't have the same kind of exposure to the same people through forced proximity. So instead, you have to manufacture that repetition. Because now everyone has their own lives and their own work schedules. No one is really together in the same building 8 hours a day unless you work like an office job, but then you don't, like, you're gonna be fucking friends with your coworkers. No one's really showing their true selves at work, so that's not really a good option either. So you need to find other ways to meet people in this recurring manner. AKA, you have to manufacture that repetition manually. Okay, cool. How the fuck do you do that? Here are some suggestions or things that you can do to actually meet people and keep seeing them in a recurring basis. So the first thing that you could try is to become a regular at a public location. So pick a neighborhood, pick a gym, maybe church, a bar, a coffee shop, and just commit to repeatedly going there. If you become an actual regular somewhere, then obviously that builds familiarity and it makes chance encounters with people that are also there more likely. And then also if you become a regular at one of these places, then like people will start recognizing you and then they might come up and like say hi to you, to which hopefully you reply, and then that leads to like an actual conversation, which is how getting to know someone starts. And the more exposure you have to these same people, the bigger chances you'll have that a friendship will eventually form. That's kind of the idea. It basically simulates that proximity thing that school used to do for you. So when you're doing this, right, at the beginning, it might feel really fucking awkward. Like the first 3 weeks, if you're not used to talking to people or you're not used to being a regular at a public place, you're gonna feel weird about it. But if you keep showing up, then eventually you'll relax, people will start remembering your name. A couple weeks in, you've probably spoken to a lot of the same people that also go to these places, and you might even hang out with them. That's the process. So another suggestion for forced proximity is that you should try and join an activity that happens consistently. So for example, an activity that takes place every week. So it might be like a late night class or a club, a recreational sport. Pick one of these, go every week. It can literally be anything, but the idea is that it should be preferably like a shared hobby that you can do with others. So the only requirement is that this activity is public and participatory, which creates excuses for you to like talk to other people at this event. If you're not good at the activity or the hobby, that's okay. In fact, it might actually be better for you if you're not good at it, because being bad at something in public is actually one of the most efficient ways to bond with other people. The only thing to keep in mind about this is to like make sure that you don't get so embarrassed or like self-conscious that you stop going. Consistency and like showing up to these things is the most important thing. And another benefit is that if you start having like picking up a hobby, right, like that you have to do in public, sometimes these hobbies don't just give you friends, they turn into like actual things, like actual stuff that you're interested in, like a real passion that you found out that you had. And if that's you, right, like if in the middle of trying to make friends you realize that I found a hobby that I like, it's very likely that that hobby might be something that you need a base for online. So for example, maybe your run club suddenly needs somewhere online to post times, or you started making your own pottery and you want to sell it online. That's where today's sponsor Squarespace comes in. Squarespace is a website building platform that allows you to build a website that is clean and beautiful without having to know any code or design. What I like about Squarespace is that you can start with a really simple concept and then refine it later. The drag and drop editor is really straightforward, and their templates make it really hard to make something look ugly even if you don't know any design. Squarespace really holds your hand through it, and it is actually like, if you try it yourself, you'll find that it is actually like fucking hard to like make something that looks ugly. Like you have to actively try and make something look hideous because the templates just make that like almost impossible. And if you're using your site to sell products, so for example, the pottery thing that I suggested, then they also have built-in analytics which let you see what's actually working instead of just blindly guessing. So if you've been sitting on an idea or a passion and you need a blog, a portfolio, a club page, any of those, you can try for free by going to squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/crystal to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Okay, great. So hopefully you took my suggestion, you've started going to one of these places, and now you've met some people. You're seeing a couple of these people regularly, maybe you've even spoken to them once or twice, you know their names. But now how do we get to the actual step of becoming friends with these people? So the first step to this, you're not gonna like it, I know you won't, because you're watching a video on how to make friends with people, but you're gonna have to do small talk. Yeah, I know. Okay, don't click off the video yet, okay, please, just listen. Small talk. I know, but you need to know that early friendship is built on low stakes chit chat with other people, and unfortunately that does mean that you're probably gonna have to get over your fear of small talk. So how do you actually do that? I feel like this is the part that people really need, right? So first tip to getting good at small talk, or like getting over your fear of small talk, is if you don't know what to say, use the environment that you're in. So what do I mean by this? So usually people are scared of small talk because they don't know what to say, and they think that like thinking of what to say requires creativity, and like that's a lot of pressure, right? But it doesn't actually need to be like that. So here's a rule for you, right? So if you're in a place or doing an activity, which you likely are if you correctly followed step 1, which is go to a place/activity regularly, then if you need to make small talk, just make that place or activity the topic of conversation. So for example, if you're in a class, then the class that you're taking should be the topic of conversation. If you're at the gym, then talk about the gym, talk about the workout, talk about the exercises. If you're making pottery, then the topic is pottery. Even if you're at work, then the topic usually becomes the shared suffering of doing your job. So use that as your jumping off point. And if you're anxious, right, if you're still like, but I don't really know what to say, you should preload with a couple of practiced default questions, which you know that you can always pull out and which always work. So I'm going to give you a list of these, just memorize these, and then if you get stuck, pull one of these out. So number 1, how long have you been coming here? Do you know if this place is always this busy? What got you into this? What got you interested in doing this? Are you from this area originally? What else do you like to do outside of this? And then when this person answers this question, don't get really like weird and nervous about it. After they respond, there's basically just a couple of options of like how you now need to react, right? So you're either gonna like, number 1, agree with them. Number 2, ask a light follow-up question, or like number 3, relate it to something small about yourself. And then after doing that, hopefully that person then throws the ball back at you, right? Like hopefully they agree with you, or they ask you a light follow-up question to which you answer, and then you ask them something back. That's how small talk works, like back and forth little questions. And then if your mind truly goes blank in the middle of that back and forth, this is gonna sound really stupid, but like just trust me, like if you actually freeze, just straight up tell them some shit like, I'm really sorry, my mind just went blank. I'm serious. You're gonna feel like you can't say it, but like just tell them, I'm so sorry, like I forgot what I was saying. As long as you say that like without saying it like insanely weirdly, the other person's probably gonna smile, they're probably gonna laugh. And that actually is good for, like, it's good for you because it humanizes you instead of making you look like a robot, and it makes you feel less awkward. Because what you need to know about people that are like good at small talk, or like if you like talk to someone, you're like, holy shit, they're so fucking confident. It's not that like these people don't ever freeze, it's just that they're better at recovery. So what naming like your anxiety does in the conversation is that it actually, ironically, it like makes you look better at small talk and like more at ease because you're able to like recover and like be confident enough to be like, oh, I'm so sorry, like I forgot what I was saying, I don't know what to say to that. It actually like makes you look better. It's like an advanced move, you know? Another piece of advice about small talk is that sometimes you have to accept that there will be like awkward moments. This is huge, and you need to remember it, like really hammer it into your brain, because people basically avoid small talk because they're trying to avoid like 2 to 3 seconds of awkward silence, but you just need to build your tolerance for that. And I know it feels unbearably long in the moment, but it's okay. It doesn't mean that you're bad at small talk because it happens to everyone. And the more you do it, right, like the more you'll build your tolerance for moments of uncomfortable silence, which again are totally okay. Honestly, it's like a skill you need to learn to be like a functioning person in society anyway, to be honest. So you might as well do it right now. Another piece of advice is that you have to go in with the understanding and the acceptance that not every single conversation is salvageable. Sometimes you don't know what to say because genuinely there isn't that much there, and that's fine. You don't need chemistry with everyone. But what you do need to be able to do is like be comfortable enough and like confident enough to attempt talking to other people. And that is kind of like a numbers game. Do it enough times and you'll find someone. And just remember that like being social is a skill. It's not something innate that like people either have or they don't have. So for example, I did not used to be able to talk to people, but it's a skill that I eventually learned through practice. So the more you do it, the better it gets. Okay, great. So now you know how to do small talk, but maybe you still don't want to do it. Maybe you're like, well, Crystal, I think small talk is superficial. I don't like doing it. And I'm going to say right now, controversially, which is that strangers usually don't like to fucking know about your deep existential trauma the first time you meet them. Usually. I'm really sorry. But I think that's perfectly reasonable as a stranger that you don't know. Not all small talk is vapid. Sometimes it is what you need to do because it's how you like slowly warm up to people. Maybe controversially, I don't think that you're entitled to like a philosophical soulmate after one conversation. And that leads us to the next step / piece of advice I have, which again, I think this one is like controversial, but it's that I think at the beginning, you probably have to drop your standards before you're able to raise them. So what do I mean by this? So I feel like a lot of people approach friendship like they're picking someone to marry for life, right? So when you're picking a friend, maybe you're like, I want them to have my sense of humor, I want them to share my values, I want them to have good taste and understand me and make me feel seen, okay? Let's just start with someone that's like nice and like stable enough to be around. Let's start there. What people say is that they want deep compatibility with their friends, which makes sense intuitively, but it also means that you end up rejecting like the majority of people that could have been potential friends with you too early because you're like, oh, they're not similar enough or like they're not my kind of person, which is fine. But also, do you think that you tick all of the boxes for this other person as well right off the bat? I don't want to call you out like this, but like likely not, right? Because you need time, because you're a complex person and you build friendship gradually, and compatibility often reveals itself later, especially if you're a young adult, you're in your 20s, you're in your early 30s, when everyone is still kind of figuring out who they are as a person, right? So you need to kind of just accept and be okay with that other person being generally warm, being a reliable person, and that probably means lowering your standards. So what does lowering your standards look like in practice? So it might look like saying yes to hanging out with someone who's fine to talk to, even if you're not obsessed with the conversation, you don't think it's insanely stimulating. It might mean allowing yourself to have banal small talk with people and being okay with the interactions at the very beginning being slightly awkward. And it also means, this one is kind of important, tolerating the fact that the first few times you hang out with someone, it might be kind of mid. Like, it might just not be like, it might just kind of be like, okay, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that this person is incompatible with you. It just means that you're still warming up to them. And once you kind of get the hang of that, and once you've done it enough times with enough different people, then you can start filtering more intentionally by raising your standards. So what does that look like in practice? So you should start asking yourself, after hanging out with these people, who actually makes me feel excited? Or like, who actually interests me? Who am I looking forward to hanging out with? Which of these people actually has similar values to me? Or like values that I respect in other people? Which one of these people would I actually trust with a secret, or who I would go to in a crisis? Basically, what I'm trying to say is that you don't have to stay close to every single person that you start talking to, but a lot of these people serve as good practice for you to practice talking to people, and they also serve as like stepping stones to you discovering people that you actually do have stuff in common with, or they just make you more socially embedded as a person, and therefore you can go out and find people that you actually click with. Okay, great. So now you've got rapport with quite a few people. Some people have become acquaintances or casual friends. Now you're going to want to escalate, right? And find people that become actual good, close friends that you could like trust with like a murder secret, right? So how do you do that? The first thing to know is that you probably only need 1 to 2 core friends first, not a giant group of friends. Everyone thinks that they need a friend group, right? Because it's cool. Like it's like, look at these friend groups, right? Like, don't they look so fucking cool and awesome? It's aspirational, you know, like the fucking college the college campus diversity brochure, right? I want to be part of that. But let's face it, right? If you're watching a video like this voluntarily in your free time, it is very likely that having a giant group of friends right off the bat is just gonna overwhelm you, okay? So just stop having the group chat fantasy for a second. You should start with something manageable, which is having 1 or 2 close friends, right? Just start with one. Deepen one bond you have with someone that's already like kind of in your orbit, right? Ideally, this is someone that's more extroverted than you, who will like naturally pull you into their friend group over time, like network effect, okay? Because that's also like a good tip for like eventually getting a friend group or like getting more friends, which is that you become friends with like your friends' friends, right? So like super effective second connection friends. But basically, Don't think about that. Think about your close. Think about one core friend first. So here, basically what you need to do is like, you need to like intentionally upgrade one of these like casual acquaintances that you've now made after following the tips in this video. So by this point, you probably already know a few people who could be real friends by now, but you haven't like escalated it with them. So out of this group, you should pick one person and then ask them to hang out with you outside of the shared context that the two of you already have. So for example, if you go to class together, ask them if they want to get lunch afterward. If you work together, suggest going to coffee afterward or go to the pub and drink. It can even just be like asking them to have a longer break with you during lunch hours. Choose one or two of these people and test the waters with them. It'll probably go better than you think, because the vast majority of the time people are flattered when you reach out to them first and if you want to hang out, because if you're being honest, no one is like that fucking busy that they can't, but it takes initiative to convert what is otherwise a pretty passive connection into something that's more active. But obviously, in doing so, you might have to be the one to make the first move. And when you're making the first move, it's probably gonna feel really awkward and fucking cringe, but you should do it anyway. Because if you're being honest with yourself, it's very likely that making the first move is like the main barrier you have, and you're scared of being rejected or seeming too eager. And that like arbitrary fear is actually what's keeping most people from like making real adult friendships. But I'm gonna be honest with you, right? That is just something that you're gonna have to get over at some point if you want to like be happy. You're just gonna have to make the first move, you know? Ask this person to hang out. You can do it over text if you want, in person or over text. Tell them you like talking to them. You don't even have to do that if you're shy. Just like ask them if they want to hang out, you know? It might be awkward. You might want to die a little bit inside, but that's kind of what it takes. There is no frictionless way to make adult friends. Someone has to go first. It might as well be you. But maybe at this point in the video, you're watching and you're like, but Crystal, I don't really know what to ask them to do outside of like the context that I already see this person in. So one piece of advice for like trying to figure out how you should connect with this person or like see them after whatever context is that you should first decide whether or not you personally work better in an activity or like a talking situation. So what I mean by this is that some people bond best over an activity or like a shared task, right? But other people like to bond through conversation. So the key is to know what type of person you are. I would suggest trying both of them, seeing which one works better for you. So for the first category of like a shared task or activity type of hangout, these would be things like asking this person to go bowling or ask them to go rock climb with you. I'm trying to think of like less obvious sport related activities. I'm just kidding. I have some. This video is scripted. I am pretending to think about these things. But I have a big list for you. Okay, so I've split this into a few categories. The first category of like activity related hangouts is looking at things, which sounds really stupid, but it includes activities like going to a thrift shop or a charity shop together, and then you can comment on like the different items that you see there. Go to the museum, again, commenting on things, looking at things, easy small talk suggestion. Go to an antique shop because funny knickknacks to talk about. Go to IKEA or a random big store trip, like those fucking ginormous Targets that you have. I don't know if like those big supermarkets that I've seen online that you have in the US where they sell like tires but also groceries and also sofas, like those everything stores. I feel like I sound like a fucking alien. You guys have those, right? I heard you go to them for fun. The Asian European mind can't really comprehend that, but you fucking do you. Cue the 20 YouTube comments that are gonna be like, wait, you're not American? I know, it's fucking crazy. I have a good accent. It's all a lie. Go to a bookstore together and then get coffee afterwards. So browse the bookshelves separately, reconvene, compare books. You could go to a record store. So similar idea to the bookstore, browse separately, talk about music. Go to a farmer's market or a food market. So this is a lot of walking around, getting little snacks. Okay, so the second category of activities that you could do are light creative activities which don't need actual creative skills. So this includes a pottery class, going painting, going to a craft cafe, cooking a meal together, baking something together, which in my opinion is like harder than cooking a meal. But again, bonding over incompetency, remember the step from earlier, is a good thing. Okay, and then the third category is games. So this includes pub quiz, board game cafe or a board game night at home, escape room, trivia night or themed events, comedy clubs. And the final category, which I've kind of spoiled earlier, is like sport related activities. So common ones include going bouldering together, taking a beginner dance class, roller skating, go bowling, classic for a reason, ice skating, mini golf, darts, and pool. Okay, so those are all the activity-related hangout suggestions that I have. But obviously, if you prefer conversation being the front and center, then here are some spots that you could go to for potentially a long conversation with this person. So starting off, really obviously, you already know this one. Go to a cafe, go to a coffee shop, get a matcha or a coffee, talk there. Go to a pub or a bar. But some other ones that are maybe not as obvious include going to a park, so go for a long walk together. Ask them to come along with you while you run an errand, so like going to pick up a parcel together or like buying something at the supermarket, and then you have like the time when you're like traveling there together. And finally, obviously, you can always ask this person to like just come over to your house to hang out when you get to know them a little bit more. Make them a coffee or a tea or a beer, one of those. Okay, great. So now you've done all of the steps up to this point. You've met people, you started talking to them, you've escalated, and hopefully by now, you've met someone you can pretty confidently say you are friends with. Well done. I am so proud of you. Look how far you've come. They grow up so fast. So now there's a secret fourth stage to this because it's not all well and done, which is maintaining your new friendship with this person. So how do you do that? How do you maintain this friendship? So the first thing to remember about maintaining friends and to ease the pressure off of you a little bit is to remember that friendships do take maintenance, but they don't take that much maintenance. So I think the most common thing that people worry about, especially if you're like making friends as an adult, is that you worry about seeming clingy. But what I would say is that unless you're like actually actively blowing up this person's phone 24/7, the more prominent and common things that kills adult friendships is nobody following up. But obviously don't let that put too much pressure on you either if you're like a bad texter. Like you don't have to constantly be maintaining a back and forth texting routine every single day, because honestly that's probably unsustainable if you're like an actual adult and you have a job. I'd say like even just texting and seeing each other every couple of weeks is enough to like keep a friendship alive. Honestly, I think like adult friendships are better than ones you have as a child in this sense, because in my experience, even if you leave things with people for like way longer, people are like usually really chill about it. Like I have some friends that I text every day, and then I also have some people that I text once in a blue moon. I've not seen them in like a year, but I know that we're still friends, right? So don't be so worried that it's gonna die out because no one reached out to you in a few weeks. It's probably more sustainable than that. But on the flip side, obviously also understand that sometimes people are slow at responding because life does in fact get in the way. It goes both ways basically. But once in a while, when you remember them, or if you want to hang out with them, just text them. That's good. Meet up. Find a schedule. Find a time to meet up. And hopefully after watching all of this video and implementing everything, you have a friend. You found a friend, in which case you should subscribe, because I single-handedly solved your social isolation. It was all me. Leave me a business review with 5 stars, etc. Send me a tip, or at the very least, click another video to watch and let the ads run in the background, because I need to buy my vitamins and those are really expensive.